Eugene, would you help us by calling the roll, please?
Matthew Lehane.
Here.
Chris Clark.
Here.
Lee Anderson.
Here.
Joe Bonds. Kevin Brown. Paul Carricker. Chris Collins. Aaron Frank. Deborah Fulton. Greg Goldstein. Rachel Inman.
Here.
Jamie Jackson. Jim Lynch. Ben Matters. Clay Murray. Jacob Pasquick. Craig Pennington.
Here.
Max Steinbaum.
Here.
Paul Agnello. Matthew Decatur. Linda Lesoot. Deborah Lately. Bob Maple. Kim Mitchell. Brian Ogle. John Summer.
All right. I don't have an agenda in front of me. Agenda.
Oh my goodness, so some good agendas, guys.
Next item is to approve the agenda for tonight. Motion by Mr. Lehane. Do I have a second? Lee Anderson, do you want to say second for me?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Approval of the November 7th minutes. We do have an email from Mr. Pastwick with some minor changes, so motion to approve with his changes would be requested.
I was not in attendance, so I will abstain from that vote.
What do you need?
I need a motion.
I motion.
All right,
Okay.
Mr. Maybe want to second that for us since we're adding your changes.
Yeah, definitely.
Minutes, we're adding your changes to them if you would be interested in seconding that
I
for
will
us.
second that.
Thank you. All those
Thank you very
in
much.
discussion, all those in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Public involvement, we don't have anything for this session, do we? Okay, and public comment, we had none.
Nope, we had no comment.
All right.
Extra agendas.
So next, we are on to discussion and action items. We are ready for the River Crossing Parkway Alternative Study. Mr. Brad Shelton from Michael Baker International. He is online. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me okay?
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let me see if I can steal the screen here.
Quick note that Joe might not match exactly his presentation tonight. That was the material for the agenda. So they do have like those.
Yeah, so this first off, can y'all see the slide deck?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, great point. So it's very, very close. So this is a presentation that we gave at the Citizens Technical Advisory Committee a couple of weeks ago. But it's presenting as essentially the analysis findings from the River Crossings Parkway Alternative Study. So really just kind of updated the next step slide just a little bit to reflect where we're at. But otherwise, everything else in here should be about the same as what was presented to the CTAC. So just kind of walk through really the purpose of the study, just to get everybody up to speed in case folks might not be familiar with what this study is. But then we'll really kind of dig into the results of our analysis, both the traffic analysis and our environmental analysis. We also have developed some planning level cost estimates for the various options. And then we'll kind of wrap with what we're referring to as our consultant preferred options. And this is essentially the material that was presented to the public as well at the public meeting. But we wanted to give you all an opportunity to see it firsthand, hear directly from us, and provide the opportunity to have some discussion. So first off, what is the study? So FAMPO has hired us to do a river crossing analysis that's really working towards an eventual NEPA certification of a preferred alternative for river crossing west of I-95 and across the Rappahannock River. In order to do things so that they are will coordinate well with the NEPA process if an option should be advanced to that stage. We're following what's referred to as a planning and environmental linkages process for this study. So all the environmental analysis that we've done as part of the study, all of the processes that we followed are in coordination with what would be expected of an eventual NEPA application. So you kind of see where we are in the process at the bottom of the screen here. We've reviewed the alignments from the previous studies. We determined a purpose and need and took that out to the public back in March. We revised our alignments based off the feedback we got during that initial public involvement period. We performed the alternative screening, and the results are what are really in this presentation here. We do not have a final recommendation as of yet. I'll go ahead and lead off with that statement. No final recommendation has been determined as of this stage. One other thing I wanted to touch on is the graphic you see on the right-hand side of the slide are the original options that were provided to us by FAMPO from a previous study that they did. This is kind of really what our starting point was the 4 alternatives that you see there. Following our initial analysis, looking at the conditions on the ground and getting feedback from a stakeholder committee that's been meeting throughout this process, as well as input that we received through the public involvement, the original public involvement period, we refined those alignments into what you see as the 5 options on this screen. So the biggest change is we added an option B2 in response to comments that we received that the town Celebrate has a planned development that really would take a lot of that property or would take advantage of a lot of that available property along the B1 alignment. So B2 avoids that developable area, but it utilizes the same termini north and south of the river. B2 was originally not selected by us, or was originally not sketched out by us, because it requires a much longer span across the river than B1 would. However, we thought it was a viable option to bring it into the discussion and to evaluate it along with the others. The other big difference between this and what was on the previous slide is all these alignments actually do follow 45 mile per hour design curves. So these aren't just arbitrary lines on the map. These would be lines that would accommodate 45 mile per hour travel speeds. So we're getting to the traffic analysis, the results of our traffic analysis, which is what we've really been spending the majority of the last few months on. And we looked at it really from 2 major perspectives. One was using the regional travel demand model to see what the volume growth would be within the study area, kind of looking at what the demand would be for a new river crossing. The Fredericksburg regional travel demand model that we use is the same model that FAMPO uses for their long-range transportation plan. So this is not an arbitrary model that we just developed for this study. It's the same model that FAMPO uses for their long-range planning studies. And in that model is anticipated housing growth, commercial growth, all the future land use information that FAMPO has provided into that model is captured here. So we did not, as a consultant, try to guess where things were going to grow and how much population we're going to have where. That was all determined by the model, which is developed and maintained by FAMPO. The second tool that we used is what we refer to as microsimulation modeling. So this is more of a fine-grained look at how these various options would impact things such as intersection delay, and that really gives us our assessment of congestion analysis. So we'll go into this in more detail in the next few slides here. So we'll start with the regional travel demand analysis summary. And again, really what we were looking for here was, how would a new crossing, how would it attract traffic? Would there be demand for a new river crossing? Does it make sense to even move forward with a river crossing? And the answer is that yes, there would be significant demand for a new river crossing. There was also the travel demand model estimated there would be between 7,000 and 8,600 vehicles during the PM peak period using the new bridge. And we used forecast year 2050 for all of our future year estimates. So you see option A of the 4 options had the lowest demand was 7,050, going up to a high demand with option B1 and B2 at almost 8,600 vehicles during the PM peak period, which is defined as between 3 and 6 p.m. The model also determined that most of that demand would be passenger vehicles, with truck traffic comprising less than 2% of the vehicles using the new crossing. What we see is really the prime routes that would benefit from a new river crossings. We would see the volume shifts to the new crossing coming from US 1 between the US 17 and the Route 3 intersections with I-95, as well as the I-95 local lanes. So we see the greatest improvements on US 1 and I-95 local lanes with the establishment of a new crossing. So I'm looking at the micro simulation model. I'm going to explain this over the next few slides. So I know this is kind of a lot to throw up on one slide at one time, but we looked at essentially the anticipated delay of every intersection within the study area using the micro simulation model. And you can see the no build is the first column here on the left, and then the various options as you move across to the right. And really the big takeaway from this slide is green is good, red is bad. You can immediately look at this and see there's more red in this no build column than there is in any other column. Really, the implementation of any option is going to reduce the average delay within the region, within the study area, and enhance the overall operational performance. But let's look at this in a little bit more visual way, so you can really see the variation in the different options. So this is those same intersections that we just had in the table, but they're shown on a map. The colors correspond with the colors you just saw that table where green is good, level service A, and red is bad, where we have level service F. The size of the circle represents the amount of delay that would be experienced at that intersection. So 2050 no build analysis, you can see we have a lot of these large red circles on the map. And if we go to, for example, option 1, the option A crossing, which is the easternmost crossing, you can see that a lot of that red disappears or the circles get smaller. So let me go back to the no build. And then back to option A again. So you can see the network improvement that you get by having that additional river crossing on these intersections. So we looked at that for all 5 of the options. So option A, option B1, option B2, option C, and option D. And honestly, most of them function fairly similar. The biggest variation that we see is in the Fall Hill Avenue intersection. You can see that's orange in option C, whereas it's red in B2, it's red in D, red in B1, but then orange in A. And you see different levels of delay still across the various levels of service, but overall, any of these options is going to be better than the no build when you're looking at delay across the network and across the system. And the other thing that we look at is when we're looking at intersections and when you're looking at where intersections might need to be improved, you're typically only focusing on intersections that have a level of service E or F. It's very unusual to want to make an investment in an intersection that's at a level of D or above. And when we look at the options with the no build option, we're looking at 6 intersections that are level E or F in 2050. Whereas if we, with the implementation of any river crossing, we're reducing that to either 4 or 3 intersections that are level E or F. So So you're seeing a 2 or 3 net intersection upgrade from failing to functional with the addition of the new river crossing. So when we look at the total system delay of each option, so if we were to go back to this original chart, and there's actually seconds of delay that are associated with each one of these values, and you were to add all that up, what you get is option A and D coming out as the top 2 options in terms of boosting the regional operational efficiency on average. We saw the greatest delay reduction with options A and D. So next I want to discuss the environmental screening. We're going to cover this at a little bit of a high level, but I can certainly drill down if there's questions when we get to the end. But the first thing I want us to mention is how we did this environmental screening is we used a 250-foot wide study corridor. Now that does not mean we're planning to have a 250-foot wide facility constructed here. The facility is estimated to be about 100 feet wide, and you can see the representative typology here at the bottom of the screen. So 4-lane divided with also multimodal accommodation, shared use path as well. So we're looking at about 100 feet that would need to be constructed. But we use a 250-foot wide study corridor to determine the impacts. So what that means is that even though is there still going to be an opportunity to leverage what's called avoidance when you get into the design phase, if there are impacts that can be avoided by shifting the corridor either to the left or to the right, depending on where a sensitive feature may be. But for the purposes of our analysis, we just assume 250 feet. Let's see what that impacts. In accordance with NEPA process, we used accepted secondary sources. Secondary sources just means data from federal, state, and local sources. So we made sure that all the sources that we used were in line with what's acceptable to the NEPA process. We separated the segments into high, medium, low by segmenting the difference between the highest impact and the lowest impact into approximately thirds, and then we just color coded them. Green, yellow, and red, as you see on the screen here, going from more favorable to less favorable. So I know this table is difficult to see. We presented, have given previous presentations to the stakeholder committee that walk through these in great detail. But just as the highlight, again, looking at the columns, you can see the different categories that we looked at, starting with the purpose and need. Our purpose and need for the study was to establish an interconnected grid system of roads, establish a new multimodal connection across the Rappahannock River, create additional routes for emergency responders. All of the alternatives will do all of those things with, D getting a little bit of a lower score on the interconnected grid system. We looked at the travel findings, which I just covered in the previous slides. We leveraged the community input that we received in the first round of public engagement. In that round, we saw option A with having the most support, and option D is having the least support. But then the other factors that we used from the environmental screening process were conservation easements, recreational and trail access, defined as the number of trails each alternative cross, because we are envisioning that if we are crossing a trail, we want to make sure there's access to those trails from this new connection. Resource protection areas, impact to the Rappahannock Preservation Area, impact to 100-year floodplains and floodways, impacts to wetlands, streams and rivers. We also mapped out all existing, approved, and proposed development. Again, we worked with our stakeholder committee extensively to understand what was going on the land development side of things in this area. So we identified properties that may be impacted. We also looked at historic assets that we have, such as historic battle sites and archaeological resources. And then we looked at parcels with existing commercial structures, existing residential structures, and existing other structures. So anytime that 250-foot line corridor crossed a parcel that has a structure on it, we noted that. That doesn't mean that it crosses the actual structure, but just crossing the parcel that has a structure on it. We wanted to make sure that we're documenting that. So really going to to really summarize the environmental screening. Option A really has the most favorable, except for no build. Of course, no build is going to have really very no environmental impact because it's the no build. But aside from the no build, option A has the most favorable, least impactful environmental screening, and that's really just determined by looking at the columns from the environmental factors and really looking at the greens versus yellows versus the reds. We did not apply any weighting to these. It's really just looking at them as to how they scored based on their individual, the categories that we screened on. On the other side of the spectrum, option D had the least favorable, highest impact when it came to the environmental screenings. And a big issue with option D is that it impacts 63 parcels that have existing residential structures on them. So the next thing I want to touch on is the planning level cost estimates. And one thing I want to be very clear up front for is these are informational only. We are not permitted to do any screening based on cost estimates and to be in accordance with NEPA. So we developed these just for orders of magnitude, just to get an idea of what planning level costs could be for these various options. We use a tool that the VDOT has for developing planning level cost estimates called the SPLICE tool. When we look at these, we see that option C is actually has the lowest cost, with option A being the highest cost. And one thing that I don't think I mentioned with option A is where option A crosses Sanford Drive, that is proposed to be a grade separation. That is proposed to be a bridge over Sanford Drive. There will not be a connection from this facility to Sanford Drive because we do not want to dump all the river crossing traffic onto Sanford Drive, where it can then impact the interchange to the north there. So this is just informational at this point in time. Once a preferred option is determined, we will be providing a detailed cost estimate that will be at an appropriate level of detail for a funding application. So based off all this information that we just presented, we did arrive at, FAMPO asked us to arrive at 2 consultant preferred options to carry forward and to really kind of highlight at the public meeting. And one thing I want to say right off the bat is with option B1 and B2 using the same termini, option B1 was not advanced as a preferred option over B2 because B2 avoids the proposed development. It has less impact on the land development side of things. And they have the same termini, so they operate the same. But even with that, we saw that option A really, just looking at the data, came out ahead. It provides a high reduction in intersection delay within the study area. It has the most favorable environmental screening results, and based off the initial round of public involvement, it had a high level of public support. The next option that we felt ranked the best was option C. It provides the next best reduction in intersection delay within the study area, had favorable environmental screening results, although not as good as option A's. But the big thing with option C is it has reduced impact to the Rappahannock preservation area and the proposed developments than option B2. Option B2 really splits the Rappahannock preservation area right down the middle, whereas option C is on the end of it. As I mentioned, no final decision has been made at this point. We are looking at the results from the most recent public engagement effort that just closed last week. We'll be taking the feedback we're getting from that process into consideration and seeing if how that impacts the results that we've come up with thus far. At that point, we'll be presenting 2 the FAMPO policy board a preferred recommendation at that time. So the survey closed January 3rd. It ran from November 20th to January 3rd. I can tell you that we had, if I remember correctly, about 1,500 responses to the survey. So it's quite a lot of data that we're going for. And honestly, it's fantastic to get that level of input on a study of this magnitude. You know, it really shows that the citizens are interested and engaged. You know, as I told many people at the meeting, there's no such thing as public input. We welcome any input and opinions on this effort. So we're combing through that data as we speak, and we'll be presenting a summary of that at the next policy board meeting, but we will not be presenting a recommendation. Likely the February meeting is when we will be providing a recommendation, depending on what we see in the public comments and you know, what transpires between now and then. But once we do have that preferred option, again, the following steps to close out this study will be to develop a detailed sketch and cost estimate of that preferred option, and that will give FAMPO what they need to move forward into a funding application. Should the FAMPO board decide to endorse an option and move it forward. At the conclusion of the study, nothing happens until the FAMPO board takes an action. So at the end of the study, it's just that. It's just a study. Everything moving forward beyond that point is up to the FAMPO board. So with that, that's really the summary of our analysis and our results. So I'll open up to any questions you may have, and if you want me to explain the data a little bit more, I'd be happy to.
You don't have anything?
I do.
Yeah. Questions? All right, Matthew.
I just have two questions. One, do you guys take into account funded improvements or improvements that are already under construction for some of the intersections in the city of Fredericksburg and Stafford County? I know there's a roundabout at Banks Ford, intersection number 11 and 12 in the city of Fredericksburg have improvements that are going to construction.
Mhm.
Intersection number 13 had improvements that are in design, and intersection number 22 in Pennsylvania also improvements that are under design as well.
Yeah. The model included existing and committed projects, so it wasn't just modeling based off of what's on the ground today. So it included the existing committed projects. I believe it included the projects that are in the long range plan, if I remember correctly.
I guess I'm speaking about the VISM model runs regarding the detailed intersection analysis.
Yeah, the VISM model run used the outputs from the regional travel demand model analysis.
Okay, so it wouldn't have included like turn lane improvements then, or the roundabout at Banks Ford.
I can double check. Let me double check on that. I'd have to ask our micro simulation team. But I know that they use the outputs from the travel demand model, and the travel demand model included the existing and committed. But I do know that a lot of work was spent to get that model up and running and validated, and it was reviewed by VDOT district staff, and district staff agreed that it was appropriate to use.
Okay, yeah, I can always forward you a list if you need to as well of what those were.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I just don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. And then the other question was, did option C, and I guess option D as well, the environmental screening take into account the seasons that celebrate apartment complex? It looks like the table stated that there's no residential impacts, but it goes right through the middle of the apartment complex. Same.
So it did. There is there's essentially a BMP in the middle of the facility that you could theoretically navigate. It would be tight. So yeah, we are well aware that would be a challenge. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I guess that's for option D, but for option C, the season to celebrate apartment complex, there's no BMP there, but it's, you know, both sides of the road to the main entrance to the apartment complex. And I noticed that there was no residential impacts in option C, whereas that's, you know, 200 plus apartment units. That would be pretty direct impact for their parcels.
Yeah. see if I can go back to,
Slide number 20.
yeah.
Oh, that has the table, yeah.
Yeah, and all right, so are you referring to?
The end of option C down at Gordon Shelton.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we're down down this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So again, we had we found a gap between the structures, which is where this is tying in at, and that's what we're shooting for with option C. So we had so we obtained all the layouts and site plans that were available when we did this analysis, and with the information we had at the time, there was a gap there when we performed the analysis. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question was just, you stated it connects, you counted the residential parcels, and those are
Right.
residential parcels. I didn't see them included in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could double check that just to make sure. And I'll check with their environmental screening lead and just make sure. But I am pretty sure that we looked at that, but I'll just double check on that.
And can y'all let the group know the answer to that question? Okay.
You could. All right, my only question would be, we see all the intersection changes.
Mhm.
But the goal, to me, the goal is, how does this affect 95? And there's no data shown in this of how a new river crossing would decrease the traffic on 95. And
So
maybe
what-
it doesn't matter versus which option, but it seems like the closer you get towards 95 with the termini, it may change how many people are looking to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we're seeing with 95 is we are seeing a significant shift to the new crossing from the I-95 local lanes when we look at the regional travel demand model. We're not really seeing a whole lot of, I mean, the impact on the main line of 95 with just this one project is nominal. But we are seeing a significant shift from the I-95 local lanes and relief there, because people are using the I-95 local lanes as a local road. You know, this will allow folks to get north and south of the river without using those I-95 local lanes. One thing that we did for the policy board, we did an additional modeling exercise to say, well, what would happen if we had a Harrison Road interchange? And when you do that, you do see even more of a shift as folks are traveling further south on I-95. Again, you know, this is a local project. It's not going to have a tremendous impact on the through lanes of I-95 because people are driving, you know, throughout the entire state on the through lanes, but it does have a significant impact on the I-95 local lanes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other thing, and I know the city is just probably in the last, 6 weeks, started to look at possibly putting industrial there by the stadium. Does that change anything, or has that been brought into the model since it's such a late development and talking data centers possibly there?
That is a late development, and I will be honest that we're waiting for some direction on how to account for that, you know, so that I'll have to divert that question back to FAMPO staff.
And I know it's a 9th inning change there.
Yeah. So we are, and I think there needs to be some. My understanding is there's going to be some forthcoming discussions on that. And I don't know that we necessarily have a response now, but I know FAMPO staff is working to determine the impacts of that.
Anybody, do we have online members that have questions? Nope. Okay. So, Aaron's got some.
Oh, I just have a question. Should we pick one of the build options and go forward with it? Is there anything in place right now that would prevent them from pulling the bike ped infrastructure out once it's in progress?
So from day one, we have assumed that this will have a bike ped component to it. And quite frankly, if FAMPO decides to advance one of these options, if they want it to be competitive for funding, it's going to be hard to sell without a multimodal component. From day one, the assumption has been that this will be a multimodal facility. So in addition to a bike ped component, this will also be a facility that can serve transit. Transit is not going to run on I-95. So right now, transit has no option to cross the river west of I-95. So that is really, as we have scoped this effort, is a critical and intrinsic piece to this project, is that it needs to be a multimodal facility. Now, of course, the FAMPO board, if they so choose, could take it out, but it will be very hard for any of these to be competitive in funding without those components, because VDOT, frankly, is looking for multimodal solutions.
Correct, but what I more often see is after the funding is assigned and the building is in progress, then budget constraints cause the bike and ped to be pulled out.
So the way that VDOT is doing projects now, and I don't want to speak for VDOT folks in the room, but the process that's referred to as smart scale, and when a smart scale application is approved, the project has to be completed as per the application, otherwise it's in violation of the program. And that's a shift from the way VDOT did business, 15, 20 years ago, where they just, gave out buckets of money and kind of said, do what you want to with it. But right now, the smart scale process, if you're receiving smart scale dollars, it's very prescriptive. And there are repercussions if you do not use the funding as it was approved.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then just a comment, not necessarily a question. What excites me about the multimodal connection across the river is that it provides a connection to the other trail systems across the river. There has been very, very brief talks about expanding Fred Trails range, and maybe using some of the Fredericksburg watershed land for more trails. Very brief, but this is a way forward. Of course, I am hesitant and cautious in keeping an eye out for all of the possible alternatives that could be going over our trail systems. And I'm looking forward to working with whatever plan comes to find a solution.
Thank you.
Aaron?
Thank you. And I have a couple of questions. I guess the first one is, when I look at the road network on the Stafford side with Sanford and Green Bank, I'll refer to them kind of as legacy roads versus Celebrate Virginia Parkway and Carl D. Silver, maybe Port Shelton. There seems to be kind of a difference in their design. And I was just curious if, in y'all's research, if you found when Celebrate Virginia was developed, Central Park was developed, was there intention for this connection and any vision for how this would occur?
I don't believe that there was that a crossing was fully envisioned as part of this effort, or when Celebrate Virginia was created. Celebrate Virginia, certainly 4-lane divided highway, provides a large amount of access to this more or less peninsula here. And we know that there's plans to develop the old, or at least portions of the old golf course. And that would provide access to that area. But no, nothing that came out and said the Celebrate was ever intended to cross the river, no.
All right, thank you. And I didn't see it, but I may have missed it. At this point, have consultants or any stakeholders identified any concerns with obtaining land rights?
So, we haven't gotten to that phase yet. Once you get into the design phase, that's when you start getting the right of way acquisition and the discussions with the landowners. But at this point, we have, as I've said, we have a stakeholder committee made up of local agency staff, who have been meeting throughout this process, and they've been providing feedback on the development of these options and the alignment of these options throughout the way. To this point, there's no fatal flaws from a landowner perspective with the information we've been given thus far. That doesn't mean there won't be some, but with the information we have, we vetted these with the knowledge that we have, and to date, we haven't heard of any absolute fatal flaws with any of these with regards to landowners.
Good, thank you.
All right. Matthew, you got one more.
One other, maybe more of a bit random question, but still in the sense of multimodal. I've seen a few plans that did show the actual gondola easement. Do you guys line any of these bridge crossings up or look into the gondola easement?
Yeah, that's the B options.
Okay.
Yep.
That would have been a connection at time. It was a gondola.
That's not.
Multimodal, yes.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. And
Thank
please
you.
feel free to follow up if you have any additional questions.
7B, election of a vice chair. I've been on for, I don't know, I guess this is my 5th year, and every locality has held the chair except the city since I've been here. We did have one partner agency that was in the chair at one point. So
anyone from the city would be eligible because everybody
yeah,
on BPAC that has the same sort of voting status.
yeah,
So
it's been more staff than it has
Citizens,
but
I'm sorry.
have we had any citizens in those roles?
Not citizen reps, no, not had citizen reps. We had Adam Lynch from Friends of the Rappahannock was our agency person. But we haven't had a citizen. But yes, any voting member is eligible. So, but they have to think about the fact that they're going to be vice chair for a year as chair in training, and then they're going to serve as chair the next year, and they need to be here at all of the meetings. So it is a role with some responsibility, but it is only every other month.
and we're now obviously it's 2 items ahead, but we're going to January to December years now, right? Because the bylaws originally were July.
Yeah, that's what I get confused about. Every other committee does their elections in June?
Does.
In June. Yeah, we're going June.
Okay,
So we're doing a little early and you're gonna serve like a year and
I got bonus.
you got bonus. That's right.
I thought originally Matthew was supposed to
I
have
thought that
bonus.
was what we did last year.
I don't know. I've got ADD. I'm temporarily challenged. I don't know. I'll look back at the records, but we are going to be switching to June like the rest of the committees.
Okay. So you wouldn't take it till we meet in July though, don't we?
Yes. So in our bylaws say nearest to July.
Yeah.
So probably would be May then.
Yeah, we'll do so you would take over July of 2026.
Yeah.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, so you get an extra few months of training as a vice chair. That's how that would work. But it's a friendly bunch. BPAC is the friendliest committee.
Record that and play that at the others.
I mean, I've been here for years.
Don't everybody jump at
Nobody's
once.
ever yelled.
Let's not change that in the next 18 months.
Let's not
Sorry.
change that.
I've been here since 2016. Nobody's ever yelled. All right.
I don't think anybody's yelled at TAC.
Who's up next for the TAC? Is it the city? Yeah, so I would prefer.
You'll be taking the tax companies.
I'll be vice, and then I'll be. So you'll be 20.
So if somebody else from the city is interested, feel free to.
People can nominate other people.
Do we have to decide this meeting?
I mean,
I should be here in March.
We have put it off a few times.
Okay. If ultimately nobody comes forward to do it, I'll do it and then I'll commit to being present. I may have to leave a little bit early today though, because I got a 7:30, but.
Right, so we can have you as a nominee, and then we can have another nominee if anybody else is willing to step forward.
Sounds good.
And then we can do the vote next time if we want to. How
That's
do you feel
fine.
about that? There are a couple people here who have already done it more than once in some cases. So,
But 3 times is a charm. Okay.
all right,
All right,
so I guess,
we won't take a vote this time and we'll hopefully finish it up in March. So we'll move on to 7C, the bike print count program. Bingo.
are you all familiar with Lita? Yeah, Lita is our new-ish GIS analyst. She's currently running our bicycle and pedestrian count program, moving our count around.
Yes. Yeah, so I kind of, I guess, took over this, at the end of October. So I'll be reporting on that as well as some data that was collected before I started. And that data from before I started is the Chatham Bridge counts. So this is our first full year of data on counts over the Chatham Bridge, minus the last 2 weeks of December. The holidays, I made this presentation before those 2 weeks, so, you know. Missing those numbers though, we still have a pretty great grand total of over 70,000 crossings counted on the bridge, and the daily average of over 200 there, with that peak being the day of the Christmas parade in downtown Fredericksburg, which I believe was also the first half year of data collected reflected that as well, with the Christmas parade being the most trafficked day. Right there.
Yeah, it's good. You don't have to look at the dates. You can pick out the Christmas parade and July 4th and you're good.
Yeah, and then, yeah, exactly, July. So, that's the Chatham Bridge as to be expected, I guess, but doing pretty good. Then since I started really moving the mobile bike counter around at the end of October, I've done the 3 locations that I'll be reporting to you all today. In Fredericksburg, that's at the VCR trail just by Route 3, then down to Spotsylvania on Hospital Boulevard, and up to Stafford by Embry Mill Park. So looking at the VCR trail, for the Spotsylvania and Stafford location, I did have some counts from previous years that I'll compare for that, but here's just the count from this past fall, with a total over about 3 weeks of collection, 2,359 bikes and pedestrians counted along this spot on the trail, with a daily average of over 100. You see the numbers there. Moving down into Spotsylvania County, this is from 2019 at the location that I counted in November. And you can see like it has this kind of impressive count data, but we also notice these really 2 massive outliers. So considering those and how they might be kind of skewing this overall picture of traffic along this section of trail, I removed those, and maybe it's a more accurate count of like the daily being closer to like 10 people a day.
Yeah, we wanted to show you these 2 because it's so easy for statistics to get skewed by one outlier.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I don't know what was going on that day. I mean,
Valentine's Day.
day before Valentine's Day, yeah. Maybe going to the Bojangles, that's across the street. It's pretty romantic. I don't know. But yeah, it seemed a little odd. Like this, I think the peak for, oh, sorry, I'm just gonna go back really quick. Yeah, it's like just under the count of the Christmas Day parade, basically, which was a peak of like 1,500, and this was 1,300-ish. So it definitely seemed odd.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what was going on. But moving forward to this past year, at the end of November into December, I don't know, pretty good. Especially compared to that daily average with those outliers removed. Finally, the last location that I'll be presenting to you all is up in Stafford County, the Embry Mills location. And we have 3 counts periods for this location. So the first is in 2017, and it's only over the course of 6 days, but pretty high counts overall. And then moving forward into 2018, still doing pretty well, over a bit longer collection period, like 2 weeks. And then when I collected pedestrian counts here, again, it's still doing really well. I mean, there's the like sports complex or the playing fields right there. And I'm not sure the timeline of the developments, the Embry Mills developments that have been going up, but it kind of makes sense, at least where all these people are coming from. And not even the residential developments, but like the Publix and all the commercial development happening there. Again, I'm not entirely sure about the timeline, but you can easily identify destinations and origins in the area. So those are what I did this past fall, into just the end of December. And since then, I've also moved the counter to 2 other locations. It's come back to Fredericksburg, on Fall Hill Avenue, right at Hospitality Lane, which is pretty close to where this river crossing we've been talking about might end up being, so it seemed relevant. And right now, it's back in Spotsylvania at the far western end of the VCR trail, in the Legacy Woods residential area. So moving forward with the counter program, I hope to just keep our mobile counter moving around for consistent amounts of times and trying to get as comprehensive a coverage of our network as possible. However, if there's anything you all would like to see, maybe like sites of potential plan trails, or maybe where there isn't a plan, but you think there maybe should be additional bike ped infrastructure. I think it'd be a cool tool to measure both how infrastructure impacts pedestrian behavior and also establishing where there might be a demand for more infrastructure. So I'll take any questions or requests, recommendations, comments, etc. Yeah.
Just from previous discussions I know we had on the bike ped counters, for instance, with the Chatham Bridge, I know, just for clarity's sake, those counts are based on the shared use path on the bridge itself. Like, just letting you know, like, anybody that bikes over the travel lanes are not counted, and they do exist. I've seen them.
Yeah, they
So
sure do.
it's just, there's actually higher bike ped usage. Well, I would probably say bike usage on the travel lanes. So those numbers are great. From my perspective on the Hospital Boulevard situation, from a planning perspective, I'm viewing it more as a baseline reading, because that's an area where the infrastructure was put in prior to a lot of the parcels, the development of the apartment complexes and commercial out parcels. And where there's a townhome communities and apartments building on the other end of Hospital Boulevard on the south end right now, that road's been extended. And we're really pursuing extension of that network through shared use paths up Route 17 corridor, and then a Germana Point Drive connection road, which will tie in with the community college as well. So in this sense, from my perspective, we saw value in trying to see what is there on the ground now. And as those connections are made and additional development happens, to see how, if you build it, they will come,
Yep.
how that actually plays out.
That's why we're counting there now.
Yeah, it's very helpful for us. I know the numbers aren't really flashy right now, but I think there's a lot of value in having that baseline. So thank you.
Probably very similar with your side with Embry Mill
Yeah.
in the last 5 years, all that development, but
I would like to see a count location just past the Chatham Bridge.
Yeah.
Right as you go around the turn and start to go downhill, maybe on the downhill, I'd be interested to see how
Do
many
you
people.
mean to the east? Or towards Chatham Heights?
To the, down the Belmont Fairground Trail.
Okay.
Like going under the bridge.
Not, yeah, not under the bridge,
But-
but on the hill as you go up or down, because no one's gonna go down the hill if they're not gonna keep going. They don't wanna walk back up the hill.
Right.
I just wanna see if we can get a count of how many people continue onto the trail.
Mhm.
Because if you put it down the flat surface along the river, like just past the bridge, you're gonna get people who are on the Belmont Ferry Farm who stop at the bridge and don't go up the hill.
Mhm.
So that's why I was thinking maybe the hill is a good spot. Just a thought. We also have an eco counter, I think, on the Belmont Ferry Farm. So I'll see if I can pull that data again.
That I've just absolutely seen it. I've walked it myself, but I see it a lot. That is kind of a dicey pedestrian crossing situation for folks trying to come off the trail and then get to Chatham Heights. They go to that median. It's kind of a lot of them are diagonally cutting across the lanes, and you have the bridge coming, and the travel's kind of coming up the hill.
Do they walk down? They don't walk down River Road, right? They go up Chatham Heights.
I see the connections I often see, even for like the Christmas parade, the holiday parade in
Yeah.
downtown. A lot of people park up Chatham Heights, and there's this connection that goes, there's a lot of pedestrians that kind of
Yes.
diagonally kind of cross that area, and it's
Yeah.
not really
Yeah.
settled.
Lead up, put in the hop sticks, and that helps.
Yeah.
We do have a project in engineering right
That's good.
now. That'll build an actual Shady's path up to the stoplight there.
Cool.
And improve the crosswalks.
Great.
That'd be good.
I mean, it's still gonna take 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to see a count at those hot sticks.
Yeah.
Or even just a little bit further down. I drive that route every day and I'm increasingly seeing pedestrians just kind of, on the side of the road there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then my other point, and maybe this is a request that can come from BPAC, but I would like to see FAMPO purchase additional bike ped counters, which program can be expanded. I know it's been a topic that we've discussed over the past 4 years, many times. But if we have a formal resolution from BPAC maybe, and a request for how they could be used and what the program would look like, that could be sent to the policy committee. Ian could figure out if it can be put in the budget, or if we need to get grant funding or STBG, whatever it is, but something formal that goes to policy committee that says BPAC is requesting this because we have this great program, at the page on the website, there's a report 18. Maybe we do a new report with all this new data for the past
That's
few
what
years.
we're planning on doing, is a new report.
And use that new report to say, here's what we've done, we want to expand this, we've used it to do X, Y, and Z on our planning.
It needs to go through TAC first.
Really?
Policy committee's not. There's something that must just TAC first.
I'll bring it up.
This has
Let's
been,
talk about it on Monday.
this has been something we have thought about. Elon.
Yeah. Alright, well, maybe in March, Mr. Chair, it can come before BPAC as a request. BPAC could send it to TAC could then formally
We'll do it,
send it. But I will bring it up on Monday, or you may as well if you would like, bring it up on Monday.
After
at TAC meeting for discussion.
Yeah.
Just a follow-up question too on that new report, will that also just provide those historic data points for other points that have been surveyed in the past, just so it's a location, or can I get that data from someone?
Yeah,
Or-
sure.
Could we do it on a
I'm
web?
just looking for all of them, basically. Response.
We can
What, Jamie?
consider this depending on Lita's workload and our timeline for things.
And what I can find, because
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
right. It's a lot of us trying to figure out what was here
For
before.
selfish reasons, we're starting to, kind of tool up for another comp plan update. I'm trying to pull data and get it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be a web map,
Anything,
and the web map would contain the data.
lots of things were deleted when we were in the hole with credits. Almost everything was deleted
Yes.
when we were in the hole with credits. So there is probably not such a thing anymore. It is, but it is what it is. But yeah, so
we have
we can work on these things.
He says, I don't know if these have been completed yet, but I'm thinking about Town Boulevard, the hill leading to / from Central Park, in between Smith Run Trail exit and I-95 Bridge, Falmouth Bridge, Ball Hill Path, and the Scout Trail connecting to Quarry to the Canal Path.
These are all places that let me open these up just so I can reference them. Looking at the Cowan Boulevard path, that can see just pedestrian connectivity into Central Park. Falmouth Bridge and Fall Hill Path, same thing. And I see a lot of people going from the Scout Trail, using the Scout Trail, going out into the town in the morning and then back in at night. Some of the same people. So I'd be interested in seeing just how much traffic is on that trail.
On Cowan, doesn't it have shared use path on one side and a sidewalk on the other side? So
All the way from Route 1 into, just past the bridge around.
That's why we need another counter.
Are you taking down Max's comment there? Cause I can't see it. You're taking that down. Okay. By the
All
way,
right, yep.
I'm also wowed by the numbers on the Chatham Bridge. Just curious for anybody who remembers, before the Chatham Bridge, in its current form existed, I don't remember if the old one even had a sidewalk.
It did. Yeah, it was about this. I walked across it, it was sprayed once,
Yeah.
little kids.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
yeah,
You know, if there were ever, and I don't think we had a counter either at this point. I'm wondering if there's any data pre-Chatham Bridge about what used to occur on that old bridge.
we never put a counter there to my memory.
Does Streetlight have bike ped stuff back to them? You do comparison? Okay.
If it was counter, they don't put you connected to that wouldn't be going out into the street.
Yeah,
You have to
there
have a
would have been.
pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. There wouldn't be anything pointing that way. There wouldn't have been a way to count.
Any other questions?
This is great. Stafford actually used the data from China Heights in their grant application recently, federal funding, so it is definitely.
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Next is our bylaw reviews.
Here's that quick leader and member reports. Make sure you get.
F Max. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Okay, all right. So what we're gonna do here is just go through the bylaws. Some folks are new and it's been a really long time since we looked at our bylaws. And there are just some things we need to take a look at. On the first page, what's marked in red is not really important. It's just a change from bike ped to active transportation. This both reflects the wide range of what is considered active transportation, and it's also more inclusive because it includes folks too who are in wheelchairs and other forms of transportation besides bicycle and pedestrian.
That same thing is in the section 1 paragraph. Regional bicycle and pedestrian page, like the third line.
Yes.
So that would have to
Yeah,
change there too.
Well, actually, that is what that is called. George Washington Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan is the old plan.
Okay.
The new iteration is called the Active Transportation Plan. So we can fix that. The next thing down, Article 3 membership. We didn't really change this, but I've noticed that some of the localities have started appointing alternates. So we'll just put that in the bylaw so that all of the localities know that they can have an alternate. I'm going to go through all these changes and then we can decide whether we agree with them, which ones we may not agree with. So on the next page, Virginia Department of Transportation, 1 representative plus an alternate. The next one, number 3, federal government, the National Park Service. So those of you who've been around a while may remember Kirsten. She was great. Who was very active. It was great. It's been years since anybody from the National Park Service attended. Do you guys have any ideas on how we should handle this? I have emailed and reached out to them, but I haven't gotten any response. Chris Collins is the person now, and I haven't heard anything from them.
Can we change it from National Park Service to just federal government and we eventually find a DOT? I don't know if there is anyone, but that would just give you a little more options. Someone comes up.
We could do that. The reason we The reason we had the National Park Service in the first place is because of all the Park Service lands around here. That was the only
Yeah.
reason that they were really applicable. Because we have to deal with routing trails like the East Coast Greenway and other things right through Park Service lands.
And then
So we
outside
need
of
them
Park
here.
Service lands.
Yeah, that's why I
The
didn't,
change, the pivot.
Right,
I was looking today, I was surprised, I knew the downtown section, but then all the other parts that are part of that positions. Lands, I guess, that they're overseeing, that there's a lot of bike ped stuff there, that person really should be here.
yeah, we need to work alongside with them. Is the reason that they need to be
Yeah.
here, them specifically, and not just FHWA.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think I don't think you should eliminate it, we've gotta have, at least, keep trying.
yeah,
Somebody's-
so I guess we keep trying. We'll leave it in here, but just wanted to call your attention to that problem.
I mean, at the very least, maybe we could ask them if they can hand over a lower level
Mhm.
person that could relay the message.
Yeah. Okay. The rest of the stuff on that page stays the same. So Article 3, officers, chairperson, vice chair, nomination, nearest meeting prior to July of each year, so that will be May. Under Article 4, duties of officers. We have the chairperson shall preside at all BPAC meetings, but also they are to serve as a liaison to the policy committee and attend meetings as they can, and serve as BPAC's non-voting rep. They can also instead appoint the vice chair or another BPAC member to serve as the policy committee representative. We have not really done this. It's just something that we can do, especially if the policy committee is talking about or voting on something that we care about.
Yeah, I've sat in virtually and not been in the room just because it's been to keep up with it, but there really hasn't been anything bike ped oriented in the last year. And I know Matthew made a couple of them. There were a couple of them both of us were on, and
Yeah, and I've never, when I was chair, I never attended as a BPAC representative, in part because the policy committee is highly political. And my board members are on that committee, and it's not appropriate at times.
Oh, yeah, you could have,
Yeah.
you can have a problem with that.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Create an issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jacob, myself, Chris, Jamie.
Yeah, in your case, you would need to appoint somebody else.
So perhaps,
I could probably get away with it
Bylaws.
because my member doesn't vote on that committee.
yeah, perhaps the bylaws should state that it should be not a locality staff member. It could be a partner agency,
Right,
or it could be a citizen, but maybe that is a chair, vice chair, and we appoint a BPAC rep who has to be not a locality staff.
Yeah, I was considering coming Monday. Cause they meet this week, don't they, coming up?
so it should be not a FAMPO locality staff member.
That's,
Yeah,
I don't know, if Greg, you guys care.
I think, at
Because,
least right now, I think it should be fine.
because their members don't vote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
my members,
that's a very good point.
members don't show up.
Very good point to make. So I can make that change. Okay, Article 5, meetings, Section 4, removal of members. Any voting member missing 3 consecutive meetings without explanation may be removed from BPAC by the BPAC staff. The regular procedure for appointing a replacement will then be followed. I have not done this in the past. Do we want to remove it, or should we leave it there so we can use it if we need to? Does anybody have a problem with it being there?
I don't have a problem with it, because I do feel like I have some folks over the years that have seriously disappeared. At a certain point. Assuming they will come back.
Right. Okay. Section 5. Section 5 was put in to all of our committees without us really seeing it. Like, we didn't vote on this section. It was put into all of our committees at the same time. And it's remote meeting participation. It's basically when an individual member requests to participate from a remote location, the law requires a quorum at BPAC. We didn't have a quorum before, but now we do, to be physically assembled at a central meeting location. So You have to be able to hear the person, sure. They have to notify FAMPO staff on or before the day of the meeting. And this is the kicker, remote participation shall be allowed for the following reasons. Permanent or temporary disability or other medical condition prevents physical attendance. A personal matter or personal emergency prevents physical attendance limited to 2 per calendar year. Or a member lives 60 miles or more from the central meeting location. So these are the reasons that you're allowed to be remote. And we have some members who are just remote a lot. And we haven't really dealt with this because we hadn't gone over these bylaws yet. So that is something that we don't have any control over this. This is part of the Code of Virginia. And this is what was put into all of our committees.
That's where the 60 miles is funny. If somebody lives 60 miles away, I don't know why they want to be on this committee anyways.
The 60 miles thing, I feel like this is something for places that don't have our traffic. Like 30 miles here is 60 miles other places.
One,
It takes me 30 minutes to go 7 miles.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
is it crow's fly distance or network distance?
So I don't know about that 60 miles thing. I wonder if there's any wiggle room.
I don't know, we have anybody that would, I mean, if it's a 60-mile radius, you're completely out of the region.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't think, well, that one doesn't affect us. It's the repetitive people that are more than 2 times a year. I mean, it's only 6 meetings.
Right.
That's the
That's
other
just
part.
something we need to think about and keep in mind. We can't have people who are always on.
On meetings, just a thought for consideration. I know the schedule's already approved for this year, but we tend to have BPAC meetings the first week of January and
Second.
Oh, except for that one, right, okay. As well as in July. July is FAMPO's off month for meetings. So similar to this week and 2 years ago in 2022, we had a snowstorm. Cat got moved this time, that was fine, but could we consider starting BPAC in February instead of January? So it'd be February, April, June, and then skip July, August.
We can do
October,
August.
December.
I will not be there, but you're welcome to do August without me. You're welcome to do August without me. That would be fine.
Yeah, or we can skip August as well. Just a thought. It's just FAMPO's off month, so just throwing that out there.
But do we,
That first meeting in December, which is their
Also
off
off
month,
month, yeah.
so either way.
Yeah, that's true. If we want to look at that calendar, or if we want to look at our calendar, that would be something we would need to vote on as well. Is that something we want to look at?
Could also look at historical attendance, see if there's a certain need that can a lot of people, and if you want to move that one.
Do you all want me to look at attendance and see if there's a meeting in particular that is always poorly attended?
that'd be good.
Okay.
I know I will not be at the meeting in July because of vacation. I didn't know if like normally the July meeting has a lot of people out because of, for some reason. So.
How does the policy committee approve the calendar? Is it the fiscal year, July, or do they approve it from January to December?
That one.
So this one's been approved with our meetings on it, so this is something I wouldn't suggest changing next January.
A lot of time, so.
We kind of do it sometimes anyway, and they don't care.
Well, for snowstorms and stuff, but.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's a star next to quorum, which I didn't click on because I didn't realize it until I printed it. Does it define what our quorum is?
It does not define
Or
what.
should
our
we need to
quorum
find, we need to come up with
We
a
need to
definition.
define what our quorum is. That is another thing. I have been considering, well, tonight we had a quorum because there's somebody here from every locality. So we were good. What do we want to consider? I mean, 3 out of 5 localities, or considering we have all of these
Yeah, because that's,
organizations as well.
and I first was like, okay, well, what is it? If it was 7 people, but you had to have 3 localities represented, but you needed 2 of them to be staff. You do need 2 of them to be citizens.
Historical attendance again, but I don't know if that's cheating.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know if you find like, for instance, you need at least 60% of membership, 40% of membership to attend. If there's a certain number where like 90% of meetings have a certain percent, maybe that's what gets done. But I don't know if that's cheating system. It should be more of a option.
The other committees have locality based.
Yeah, but they're all either elected officials, staff, citizens, whereas we're such a mix, it's like, you know, no staff, no locality staff showed up and just citizens. Would we be in a different world versus staff, just staff and no citizens? And then it's, yeah.
Be a mix. It could be something like at least 3 localities and 1 citizen / organization member.
When you say at least 3 localities, do you mean staff?
Whoever their representative is, whoever they said, because it says that Stafford, King George, Spotsylvania County, so whoever they've told us is their representative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or alternate.
So at this moment, we still have the city represented in the room because we've got Aaron.
Exactly.
Well, Aaron is their citizen representative.
Yes, but I think that's what you said, is it doesn't matter
Oh.
if it's Jamie or Aaron, the city is represented.
Yeah, no, I was, that would have been citizen, sorry.
Yeah, like that's,
But we still have, right now, we would still have 3.
we've got 4.
We've got 4.
I know,
staff.
but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we have 4 staff still,
We would meet the minimum.
we have all 5 localities actually represented.
I was just trying to think of a way that would bring the citizen element in as an important, because it's a very important
It
element.
is.
Yeah, but it's a challenge, I think.
But it's a challenge.
Especially for the non-regular localities with me and Craig, because it's hard to say, hey, let's go talk about trails and stuff in Stafford and the city and Spotsy when you live in Dahlgren or you live in Ladysmith.
I mean, a quorum could just be. There's the total membership and there's like 60 or 70% of the membership.
Yeah.
Like
No, I
that
get-
might just be an easier way to deal with it since it's just such a mixed group of people.
Yeah.
I just.
We just got to go through then.
That was my.
It's to
question. I know
figure-
It's a lot of members. We still get, 5 to 8 to 10 people here at every meeting. But I don't remember, is there 15 members?
Well, that's
That's
one
where
of my
we
other
forgot
things
each
is
group.
I am going to
So
remove people who have not been here for literal years. Not their organizations, them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once I've done that, I think we could safely call a quorum. What do you think? 60%? 70%? What do we think
Well, what is our membership percent right now?
at this moment?
Here at this meeting.
So would you count each element as 1? Or would you count, so because you have.
Oh, each element or each
5,
person?
6, 7, 8, you have 8 citizen representatives, so would that count as 8 towards the 60%? Or 1, to have 1 that fills that?
Well, I think we won for each locality, right? Because is it 2 each?
I'm not sure what.
It's 1 from each locality and 2 at large.
I was looking at it the way you have it divided up.
Okay,
on the
if
website.
you're looking at that, so get rid of the people who have not come in years, as in Mr. Collins and Mr. Matters.
So there's 15 items, Lee, right?
Yes, there's 15,
15 items.
yes.
And we have 1, 2, 3. If you guys are supposed to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Did you delete Mr. Collins and Mr. Matters?
No, because I'm just counting items.
Yeah, PRTC and National Park Service have sent no one
So
for
13.
years.
So you have 6 to 7.
Yeah, so 60% of 13 would be 8 people.
Fred Cyclist Club too. When's the last time we?
They were here the time before last.
Oh, they were, okay,
One of them was here the time before last.
okay, they were here in
So,
August or whatever.
Have 8 now, we had 10.
so 60%, does that seem doable?
You may think,
I think you need to define that quite well.
This is it's active members, right? Not, because I guess,
Before the next meeting, I'm gonna go through and
So
the people who.
PRTC is gonna be removed. And National Park Services,
The organization will stay, the person will be removed, it will be vacant.
so if they're not filled, then they
We don't
wouldn't count as part of the
don't count them.
percentage.
so that wording needs to be included in what makes.
Okay. Yeah, if it's vacant, it can't be filled. If we can't count it against our quorum, if it's,
Correct.
there's no
Yeah.
person to not be here. Right.
Yeah, that sounds like we had,
we only had 7 today.
We had more than that.
We had 10 of them.
Oh, online too, apologies.
Yeah.
We had, we had 10 people.
Well, I'm counting them as 1.
Why are you counting them?
8. We have 8 right now.
If we're doing it based off of the items.
We're so really close to each other.
If we're doing it based
Apparently.
off,
Oh, are we doing that?
well, that was the question. Doing it based off Stafford, King George, Spotsy, City, Caroline, VDOT, PRC, remove MPS, JRC, DRC, Fred Trails, Potomac Heritage Trail.
Fred Trails is here.
Jim is on with 2 items, so you can move that down to 1, so make that 12.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're counting items, not people.
We can count people, that's fine. I just,
Well, we need to figure that out.
If you count people, it's gonna balloon your
Yeah.
requirements
Okay,
because of the citizen representatives.
okay.
And I'm assuming we do not count alternates if we're counting people.
I would just count items, because then you only have 12,
Okay,
and then you had 7 here tonight, and that would have been.
Easy.
one more than,
Yeah,
more than half, because it's probably what, I mean, that's what our boards are.
well, we have 8 here now. We had 10.
Apologies, I keep forgetting on 1, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
all right. Items then.
Just one item for your consideration also. I would evaluate 60% versus 51%. Think about that in terms of round numbers, odd numbers, and how many people really think we're gonna get here just for ease of doing business.
I like 51.
Yeah, 51 I think is a good number.
Yeah, it's just majority.
One more than half.
Yes.
One more than half.
Sounds good to me. So 51% is our quorum and I will write that. All right, that part's settled. And then the last thing. Jean, if you want to scroll to the last red thing. I just want to let you guys know that that's ridiculous and I'm removing it.
So,
Publishing your names and addresses. I don't know how that got in there. Who put that in there? No.
Well, I'm assuming that we're just talking the name and email.
Yeah, name and.
I mean, you can have your,
If it's a personal, but if it's your work email, that's not as big as, I couldn't understand people being worried about personal emails out there.
Well, I feel like you have to put the name out there.
Yeah.
your name is there. Your name's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But if we publish your email, like
Oh.
spam bots and things will get you.
Yes,
You know, all sorts of things.
I agree with
You
you.
don't need your. You don't need your emails. If people want to do public involvement stuff, they can email us and we will read it here and you can respond.
and
Your names are all published on the website.
find us connecting back through and going, okay, Matthew works in Stafford, so I gotta go to Stafford. Yeah, that's
Fine, they can find you, but
That way,
we're not
they can
gonna
get to us.
contribute to you getting spam emails.
Yeah, the second you put your email on the website.
All right, with those changes. I handed over to you, call for a. Oh, I didn't put
What?
it as an action item. The
Yeah.
action item is. Can we revise these
You need a motion?
changes?
So I think, as I say, I don't know if we need to have an action item, we just need consensus for you to draft in all the updates we have. So that we can vote on them in March,
That sounds good to me, yes,
all right? Everybody's agreeing on that?
that's what we'll do then.
One of these is the agenda. All right, so we move on to correspondence.
So the only correspondence we have, is I just wanted to call attention to, the League of American Cyclists, and I have a piece of paper here somewhere with that on it, has brought out the bicycles friendly state report card and has called Virginia out for the smart scale revisions that just came out for round 6. Under the top tip there, Virginia's smart scale process has received national recognition for its transparent scoring of priority projects, but recent changes eliminated land use as a criteria and made several other changes that make funding bicycle and pedestrian safety projects more difficult. Evaluate the impact of those changes and update the program. So you guys have probably heard us complain about the land use removal and the changes for this round. And that has made nationwide censure. So thought I'd point that out. Removing the land use factor does make it much more difficult to score high with smaller bicycle and pedestrian and other multimodal projects. So that's it for correspondence.
All right. Staff reports. Starting on the outside, Craig's got nothing. Jacob?
That's member
Nothing.
reports.
I do want to report that we did fill our position. So Mel Davis started with us, was supposed to be Monday, but it turned out to be Tuesday. So we do have that position filled. And I did want to make an announcement that the Fredericksburg Visitor Center is having their grand opening, their open house tomorrow from 12 to 4, if anyone's interested. And
Aaron, anything?
Yeah, actually, really exciting study that the city is embarking on to convert the downtown streets, Princess Anne, Caroline, and William Street from one way to two directions. So they are, they being the city is actually moving back rather quickly. They have a consultant who's studying it, Simmons, and they're going to be producing some study results the coming month, with the goal of getting this ready for budget season. So not only is this a one-way to two-way conversion downtown, but the city's also evaluating what type of bicycle infrastructure should be incorporated with the new road design, with multiple different street collection options, as well as potential bike connections on, I would call it the periphery of Caroline, PA, and William in terms of how to connect to the Bankside and Dixon Trail connector. So super cool, and looking forward to seeing what the study comes out with.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, just when I finally figured out how to drive, now I can go down any road.
any way we can get these changed to one way?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. This side of the railroad tracks that we're on is not a part of that study.
So for PA, no, it is not. That's right. So Caroline, it does extend down onto the other side of the tracks, but PA it does not. I should mention also that the core, I would call the core being between, I think it's William and George, PA and Caroline, that is still going to be a one-way. So the consultant looked at it and said, we just can't do it from a loading perspective, from an operational perspective downtown of an entirety converting two-way, one-way to two-way. So it's going to be most of the streets, but there still will be some sections. The study is going so far.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Confused?
Great for traffic calming on the wider roads, but when you have the narrow ones that only have one lane anyway.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep, I just have two quick things. So some of you might already know our district planning manager, Cassie Lord, is going to be leaving at the end of this month. She's going to central office, so that position is going to be open and we're trying to fill that. And then next Tuesday, the CTB meeting will be happening. That's going to be broadcasted live, so everyone can watch it online. I believe the workshop is at 10 a.m. and the action meeting is at 12:30, and they'll go over smart scale scoring.
Thank you.
Can I pull up something on our Stafford County website? Just go to staffordcountypa.gov. Page then scroll down to the red banner and hit road updates on the right side. And then hit planning. And then transportation master plan. You can just click the. So this is our master plan. It was approved in November, and as of December, I have our interactive web map up. If you scroll down a little bit more, this interactive web map, road projects, and if you click on multimodal tab, it'll show you all the multimodal projects. These are really just our sidewalk gaps that we're aiming to fill throughout the county. There's like 30-ish projects. And then I'm gonna figure out a way to add some trail stuff that we had talked about last year as well. So just an FYI on that. Nice.
It's very cool.
Beating us towards that. Yeah, that's nice. We're working on something like that ourselves right now.
Took me a while to figure out.
It takes a while.
I had not used ArcGIS Experience in a long time. But yeah.
Ours is very spread out.
A little bit.
That's nothing really connects.
I will also note if you scroll up to the top of this page and go back to like our main transportation page. Back like 3 pages. 2. And just hit projects. For everyone's awareness, I mentioned a project earlier. If you scroll down, this is our projects page, all of our ongoing Stafford administered, mostly VDOT funded projects. Keep going. Is going to be the Chatham Heights and Kings Highway sidewalk project, a little bit further up. You just passed it right there. That's the project I mentioned earlier that connects to the Belmont Fairground Trail, where the hot sticks are. If you scroll down, there is a sketch, timeline sketch, and that is kind of where any updates on this project will be located.
Look at that fun transparency online.
I think that really complements everything. So,
Yep.
showing implementation track, you know, how things are going. The regional trail plan, so.
I'll mention one other item to Jacob's point. It'd be awesome if everyone at some point, if you go to the back to the planning page. Planning mapping. This is our interactive map of all of our projects, which is the actual sketch of the projects. I do need to fix the one for Kings Highway, Chatham Heights. If you zoom in, I know it's a little dark. You'll see the actual like interactive sketch of the projects. If you go to the right a little bit and zoom in, go a little north, and zoom in on that intersection. If it loads, you'll see an interactive sketch of the right one. That's right. There it is.
Oh,
Oh,
very
that's
cool.
super cool.
So that's for all of the projects on that project page. I think I have almost every single project in, but for the Kings Highway project, if you go all the way down there, there's an interactive map of it. I fixed it slightly. I messed up as well. Sorry, intern. I did a bunch of them. We have an intern who's been helping us fill gaps as well. Yeah, that was all updated in the past 3 months.
Max, with Fed Trails, anything for us?
I think you had to drop off.
Yeah.
I lost him.
Oh, we lost him? Okay. So Max Steinbaum, who had to go, is our new Fred Trails representative, so sure he'll be back next time. He's replacing Lynn Faust.
On the King George side, Gina was ready to kill me today, but we finally did, I think, officially get our TAP application signed correctly, the VDOT way. Electronic signatures mean different things to different. But I think we got that. So that's all. So if I hear a motion to adjourn in a second,
Motion to adjourn.
So
and I got a second, all discussion, those in favor, aye, those opposed. Chair votes aye, we are adjourned till
Thanks,
March 6th.